And now we're going to go to the one vocation that, at least for me, I'm always like, what does that really mean? So we're going to go with the Consecrated Life. So today we have Maria Reinagel, if I said it right, who is the director of for Archdiocese of Consecrated Life.
Thank you so much, Martha, and all of you for having me. I appreciate that warm welcome. I have been consecrated for 32 years so far, hopefully, and I'll tell you more about that later. I wanted to start with a story. On June 19th, 2023, I was set to donate blood, but I had to cancel that week because I had a bug in the summer, which is just not the normal time to get a bug. The next week, I had to cancel again because I was still sick. And I just had a sense that maybe the Lord was doing something there, and so I was just actively offering it up for whoever needed that sacrifice. On July 5th, I received an email from a woman named Kathy. I hadn't talked to Kathy in 31 years. We used to co-teach preschool, and her son had died on June 19th, the day that I had to cancel my appointment. And I was so moved with faith that God was using my suffering, my sacrifices for her son who needed my prayers on June 19th, not July 5th when I heard about it. So I wrote a poem, and I'm afraid it doesn't have meter and rhyme and all that, but anyway, I think it tells you a little bit about the Lord's working in my life. The garment of my consecration. The garment of my consecration is not one I've ever seen. It's been woven thread by thread. Each person I've ever met who's been given to me forms part of the weaving. My open heart, pulling them into the fabric of my life. Some a single thread. Noah, the deaf young man at the shop. Kathy, whose son I taught 31 years ago. They are all there. And in their need, without my knowing or theirs, one twitch of the stitch, and he takes all I offer him and pours it out on them in blessing and grace. So Noah was a young man I saw when I took our vacuum cleaner in for repair, and I just had a sense that he suffers a lot, and I felt, Lord, I just want to pray for him for the rest of my life. And when this friend reached out, it was just so moving, and it was Feast of Maria Goretti that I wrote that poem, and I would often date my poems according to the awareness of the saint that was there. So my friend and I knew each other in New Hampshire, not a particularly Catholic, much less very Christian state. She was a very good woman, very kind-hearted, but of no particular faith. So I sent her the poem and I said, I don't know if this will sound a little weird to you, but this is what came to me and this is what she wrote. Dear Maria, your email touched me very deeply. It did not seem strange at all. In fact, it made perfect sense. I was so moved by what you said, and I couldn't stop reading your poem and crying. The day prior to reading your message, I was in a period of deep regret, terrible anger, saying I'd never forgive myself for what happened to TJ. After reading and rereading your poem, I researched St. Maria Goretti. I was so moved by her story and her capacity for forgiveness. Her message to me is that I have to forgive myself and anyone else I feel anger toward. I needed to hear and know that message at that very moment, so thank you from the bottom of my heart. I will keep reminding myself of St. Maria Goretti every time I get into deep, dark places. I feel your love and prayers, and I'm so grateful to you. I hope you're recovering well and getting better every day. I was sad to hear you became so ill. Thank you, Maria. I know I will be able to call you sometime. Love, Kathy. And I think that spoke to me so much because people often, have talked about my intercession, and I feel like in the beginning when I did the Sienna Charisms and I got to know that intercession is one of my charisms, I went through a whole journey, and I won't drag you through that, but I really feel like the Lord in the beginning showed a lot of connections for me, but then over time He's made it much more subtle like this, and now even just that faith that I'm not even going to know a lot of times what the Lord's doing with my life, but there's a lot of trust there that everything that I offer to Him is used for the good of souls, whether I'm aware or not. So let's say a little bit about what am I as a consecrated woman. The beautiful brochures that you gave us from the Vienna Institute has a call to love, and if you flip that open, there's an absolutely wonderful breakdown of the different kinds of consecrated life. Consecrated life is the big circle, and John Paul II in 1995 said, let's talk about consecrated life, because religious life is just one piece of that big pie. And so this gives a much more clear image. There are consecrated virgins, they're not religious. There are secular institutes, people who live in them are not religious, and there are societies of apostolic life. So I'm actually a lay woman who's consecrated. And because I'm not a public witness before the church, I'm not called upon to wear a habit. I'm a lay woman. Religious are called upon to wear a habit because they made a public profession before the church. And what that religious expression looks like for them can vary. But this, I think, was a helpful description. I do live a community life as consecrated women. We are a society of apostolic life of pontifical right, meaning that we're directly under the Pope. And we live in international communities. There are 50 communities of consecrated women around the world. There are about 500. We live in 16 different countries. Spanish is our official language, and then each country then adapts to what their language is. So we strive to have multiple nationalities within our community. So I have lived in Mexico, Rome, and the States. I was blessed and gifted to be a professor for our consecrated women for many years, so I didn't get moved around as much as others did. But how did I get there? You know, that's kind of a good question. Well, when I was 11, my dad would always be, poking at me, oh, you make a great sister, and I would get annoyed, like, Dad, all right, you make a good mother, superior, ha! Dad humor, right? So he had me thinking about it. And then when I was 15, my grandmother sent me a postcard that really kind of terrified me. It was really simple, and she put, God always answers grandma's prayers. I was like, uh-oh. And you know what? I found that postcard when I was discerning my vocation 10 years later. It was like, I knew when she wrote that she was telling me that she was praying to God for me to have a vocation. And it just hit me, right? It was right there. So I ended up going to a great Catholic college, eventually got engaged some years after, but it wasn't a really happy arrangement. So I moved across the country, felt the Lord calling me to Rhode Island, and that's where I coincided with the consecrated women just coming for the first time to found in the States. And the way that I heard the vocation described was, we're like the CIA, undercover, and I think in our culture, I can see that there's a providence to it. I definitely recognize the need for the bride of Christ, the religious, to be seen, to be cherished, to be recognized, and be a beautiful witness that they're called to be. But I also recognize that in this culture, sometimes that witness can be rejected out of hand, and there's no space. You wouldn't go up to her, you wouldn't talk to her because there's a prejudice there. And people who don't know that my life is given to the God can come and talk to me and then find out later. So I'm great friends with a woman who's New Agey. We have conversations regularly, and she knows exactly where I stand, and we're polar opposites. But through our friendship, little by little, I'm able to influence, in some small measure, not as much as I wish, her decisions and choices, right? So that's kind of the idea there, that of walking with people, being able to accompany them, to be able to introduce them to this Christ that has captured our hearts, who's loved us so deeply that we want them to know that too. I work for the Archdiocese in the Office for Consecrated Life, so I'm representing the Archbishop, supporting those who are consecrated and trying to promote consecrated life. I think I shared with Julie some of the things I'm trying to do this year. I would love to ask for your prayers. Father John Burns is a priest north of us, I think he's in Wisconsin, and he wants to renew the church by bringing back the visibility of the bride. And so he's created this simple template, like the Andrew dinners that Father Michael's doing for young men to look at the priesthood. He came up with the idea, what about a Bethany brunch? So next Sunday, up in the north, we're going to have Mass for the parish, and then a brunch for these young women to meet the Mercedarian sisters who are coming down to give them a talk. And then we'll have adoration, benediction, so a short window, 9 to 3, but a chance for young women to experience the beauty of religious life. So I will have a talk in the north in October, one in February in the Dayton area, and then one down here in Cincinnati in March, with the hope that in May I could find 30 women to have a Fiat Ministries retreat, which is a beautiful initiative. If I have 30 women who come to that, I'll have 8 different religious sisters come in and do the talks and praying with women and so forth. I would love your prayers for these initiatives. In fact, I am grateful because Serra is helping me to act on these endeavors. So, yes, sir.
There's a ministry outside of Brookville, Indiana, like a camp. Are you?
Yeah, we're River Ridge. Absolutely, we work there. Yes, we do. We run summer camps there for our young women, young men.
Can you take a minute and talk about that ministry and the type of people who benefit from that?
I'm sorry?
Can you take a minute and talk about that ministry out in Brookville?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So,
benefits?
Sure. So, I myself am working for the Archdiocese, but most of my sisters might work more directly in ministry and not like in a paid position, so to speak. So Rachel Peach and Carrie O'Connor, 2 women in my community here, they offer summer camps, 3 different summer camps for young women. They have a 5th to 8th grade, they have a rising 9th graders, and then they have a high schoolers camp. And they probably have, 100, 200 young women who go through those camps every summer. But then similarly, the boys have the same thing with the legionaries. They have conquest camps where they will also have their week-long camps, daily mass, adoration, confession. We try to bring people to the sacraments. That's really core to who we are. So in those camps, it's beautiful for me to see, like, yes, the girls are running around crazy and doing all these fun things, but there's also time of getting to know Christ and praying in adoration and, connecting with Him. Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely. Thank you so much for your time.